Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the FloTrack Podcast. We are in studio for the first time. This trio actually, usually John is remote, but we're all in studio. So I'm here with Ashley Tishins and John Davern. I couldn't be happier to do episode 704 with both of y'all.
Let's do it. I mean, let's just jump right into track and field. I guess we don't have to, but like.
Well, I think before we get to that, how does it feel to be in the studio? Is this your first time in the studio?
I mean, look at this place. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a fun week. Obviously, I've been in Austin all week and just kind of checking out the city. I mean, I've been here before, but there's always something new in the city in Austin. And then just spending time with this crew has been fun so far. I hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're going to keep having fun. And as we talk about fun, we have a lot of fun coming up for you guys. This is the 2024 Track and Field Cross Country Road Race Wrapped. So let's do it. Today we're going to be reflecting on all things exciting that was happening track cross country, that from indoor to outdoor to the Olympics. And we're going to take a look at some of our favorite moments, discuss some of the biggest stars to emerge in the sport in a very action-packed year. So in chronological order, indoor season. Let's do it.
Yes. I think, so basically, for this show, we're going to basically, like you said, dive into everything that happened. So I guess, like you said, logically, you got to start with everything at the beginning of the year, which, gosh, it's crazy to think all the way back to February, March when indoor season was happening. But man, it's crazy looking at how some of those moments that happened then and then reflecting on how that changed some people's trajectories, if you're looking on the pro side, for instance, some of the biggest moments in my mind, I think were number one, I think Christian Coleman winning the 60-meter indoor title was very memorable. Continuing to show that he's one of the best starters in the world. That was kind of when I feel like Noah Lyles was really trying to start some of his trash talking and talking the talk. Didn't work out this time for him, but as we all know, he would later win that 100-meter title in the Olympics. But I think that was just a big moment on the indoor circuit. And then I also think, too, in terms of trajectory, starting at one point in the season and then seeing that carry over through the rest of the year, Julian Alfred, man, winning the 60-meter indoor title, that was such a big breakthrough moment for her. I mean, this was her first full pro season coming out of Texas. And what better way to do that than to win a world indoor title? And then, as we all saw, she developed into, I think going forward, she's going to be one of the biggest stars in women's sprints. So I think that was all just really interesting to see unfold, at least at the pro level during the indoor season.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason of why she's at least she was my breakout woman of the year candidate.
Yeah.
And I'll openly admit that, stand by it. I think we've seen her really develop across the entire range, right? From 60 to 200, and it all started in the indoor season when she was just kind of lighting things on fire. And then we talk about Noah Lyles, right? The 60-meter, I don't think we've ever thought he's the best at the 60-meter distance, especially not with Coleman's start. I think, though, like you said, that started another big year for him, and I think that trash talk really set the stage for the rest of his year, right? When we're going to go through outdoor season and then the Olympics as well. But in an Olympic year, I feel like it is really important to create your persona and develop your brand. And I think Noah Lyles has done that, right? Whether you like him or you hate him, he has developed his brand really well over the last year or so. And it all started in indoors.
Definitely want to respond to that point about Noah and Christian. One thing about that race that was really fun to watch is just it was a huge win for Coleman in so many ways. And I think it definitely put Noah Lyles on notice because we all know he is a big trash talker, and that's kind of, like you were saying, a part of his persona in so many ways. But I think it also emphasized some of his flaws in his races. Noah has strengths. We all know that. His range is amazing. And I actually do think he can be very competitive in the 400 if he ever chose to do so.
Yeah.
Yep. I actually do think he can. He has amazing range. Obviously he's very fast and his top end speed is amazing. But we all know, just like the 100, the 60 meter, you have zero room for error. You already have zero room for error in the one, but Christian really ran the perfect race from start to finish. And one thing that I love that he did, he ran his race. He honed in on his strengths. He catapulted from the blocks and just ultimately finished the race in kind of commanding fashion. It was very clear who won the race. And you saw in the race, Noah was coming, that top end speed was coming, but he just ran out of real estate. Christian really ran his race and obviously, came home with the gold. And then also want to also respond to the point about Julian Alfred. I know she's your breakout athlete of the year, but for me, just watching her throughout college, it was never really a matter of if, just when. The stuff that she's been doing while she was at Texas, it was very clear. I think people probably have been sleeping on her a little bit just because of the stardom of some other athletes, but she had the all-time best NCAA performance in 2022 in the 60 meter, just in the heats. And, she became like a top 30, like fastest woman like ever while she was still in college. So yeah, it definitely was a matter of just when rather than if. Like, I think personally, just from watching her performance, this was kind of to be expected.
Yeah. I think like, at least for me, like, and I'm not as tuned in with the sprint side as I am with the distance side. It really did feel like and you just hit on a lot of the points there, right? Like, she's run one of the top 30 fastest 60 meters. But to do that on the world stage, I feel like is a little bit different, right? Like, and we're talking about the Olympics, like that's like a huge whole nother level compared to the collegiate side. And I think she just really responded to the pressure so well, right? Like, and I feel like she was completely unfazed by the fact that she was competing on the biggest stage of her career.
Her poise.
And there's also like, there's some weight that comes with her specifically. Like, she's representing St. Lucia, like a country that, that they don't win medals. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I'm sure that there has to be some pressure maybe that comes with that as well. But she's handled everything like complete pro out of the gates. And I think really like, if you look back to indoor, I think that was one of the biggest like moments and stars to emerge really then was, all right, Julian Alfred, she's already here and she's going to be here to stick around for a bit.
Oh, yeah. She's here to stay. I'm so excited to watch it. Obviously, we'll get to the outdoor season and Olympics, but as you can see, that definitely carried over throughout the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the collegiate side. And I mean, we talk about the pros here, but I think one of the things we need to talk about, right, is Nico Young.
Yes, absolutely.
Ashley, tell me about Nico Young. Like, what did he do in 2024?
When I think back of like to NCAA, like the most memorable performances, like at NCAA indoor championships and just throughout indoors, is Nico Young just had finally like the season where he was top dog. Like, I think if you look at his collegiate career for a while, like he was so close. Like you know what I mean? Like, he never won a national title until NCAA indoors when he won the 3K and the 5K. He also would set the collegiate record in the indoor 5K at BU during the indoor season. So I think in a lot of ways, like seeing him have that success finally like pay off, I think everyone in the distance running community was just stoked by it. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I was at Valentine this year at BU, and one of the questions I asked him after his record-setting 3K, 5K? 5K. After his record-setting 5K, he ran 12:56, right? 12:56?
12:57, I think.
12:57.
Yeah.
And one of the things I asked him is, like, what does this feel like? Because this entire facility was rooting for you. Everyone in the stands was rooting Nico's name. And there were some stars in that field. Like, it wasn't just like it was just Nico. Like, there were some top-end talent. But everyone was just rallied around Nico Young. Everyone was screaming Nico Young. And I guess it's helpful when you come from that Newbury Park background. And so you're prolific as a high schooler. Now you're prolific as a college athlete at the time. And now he's a prolific pro. But I asked him that, and he was just like, dude, it's really special. Like, it's cool that I have the support that I do, and I'm able to deliver for these people. I feel like you said, he became the name, especially during the indoor season. Outdoor, he had stumbled a little bit in terms of, the titles, but on the indoor circuit, he just absolutely established his dominance and was like, this is my year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why for me, like if I'm looking at most memorable moments of indoor, when I look at NCAA, that's the one that really stands out in my brain. Like you said, everyone at that New Balance track was cheering for him as he was racing to 2 titles. So I think that, this was a really big moment for him. And then eventually, like you said, he didn't have the best outdoor season, but now he has moved on to the pro circuit. So I think that was just like a great way for him to have some good moments before he transitioned to the next level.
Definitely. And as we move through indoor season, I mean, we could go back to the pros real quickly. Grant Holloway.
Yeah, we can't, like, I feel like we can't talk about indoor season without talking about Grant Holloway.
The Flamingo.
It's like one of those things, though, we're going to be talking about him this entire episode, just based on the year that he had.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so hard because it's like you talk about him during indoor and you're like, oh, well, he ran a world record in the 60-meter hurdles. But, like, what he did on the outdoor circuit was even bigger and better.
Yeah. But I guess the thing to hone in on Grant Holloway indoor season is, like, this man does not lose indoors. Like, he just doesn't. Like, he doesn't lose across the 60-meter hurdles distance. And so, like, just to see that, you know, I don't think anyone expected anything less from him this indoor season. Like, when I was there when he broke his, he lowered the world record there in the 60-meter hurdles at USATF Indoor Championships in Albuquerque. And I mean, hey, I think I told Olivia, we did a podcast right before, and I was like, Grant Holloway will break the world record. And she thought it was such a hot take, but I'm like, you're at altitude, and it's freaking Grant Holloway. Like, I think that he continues to shine, and I think we can all agree gets a little bit underrated sometimes, but he had a phenomenal year, and it started in the indoor season.
He's just so consistent. Like, he doesn't make mistakes. It's just like every hurdle is exactly the same. Every step is exactly the same. Every race. Well, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, it's just a flawless execution, and you see it time and time and time and time again. Like, when's the last time we saw him stumble over a hurdle? Like, a bad stumble. Like, I'm not just talking clipping a hurdle, but, like, when's the last time we actually saw him, like, have a bad race? I can't remember.
I can't name one. Like, I think even from watching him in Florida, like, I literally can't name one. And since Florida till now, he kind of checks all the boxes off on what your ideal athlete would be. Like, okay, the physicality of it, I think his gene pool is ridiculous. And then on top, like, what? And then I think even over all of that, the mentality, the championship pedigree, the way that he just really has that dog in him. Those are like those intangibles that you cannot teach. You can tell somebody and give them a workout all you want, all day and long. Tell them to work out 5 to 6 days a week and give them the workouts, whatever. But, like, on top of that, he just has this I'm not going to lose mentality. And if I ever did, like, in some strange world where he does lose, I bet you he's going to come back with a vengeance and is going to ignite a fire that nobody's going to be able to put out.
Well, I think we did see a little bit of that this year because, I mean, coming into the Olympic year, he did not have an Olympic gold. Like, I think if you were to look at his resume over the past, like, where the blemishes are, like, that was the one. Like, that was the one. He did not have Olympic gold. Didn't get that in Tokyo. And I know we'll get to that in a bit later on in the show. But, I think he definitely was fighting for that, too. And that, I guess, journey, you could say, started indoors.
I know. Can you believe we're just on indoor and there's just so much to talk about?
I think that's the issue. There's so many, like, moments to talk about, and I feel like you could spend, like, at least 30 minutes per season, but, like, there's no way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, just the sheer amount in 2024, how many world records, national records, high school national records, NCAA records, the amount of records that went down, like you said, we could talk about every single one of those races or throws, jumps for 10 plus minutes each, and we'd be over 3 hours easily.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then add another hour because it is an Olympic year. So
exactly. Like you could talk about the Olympics itself for a long time.
We can do a marathon pod if you'd like.
But okay, you mentioned high school national records. I think we got to talk about some of the crazy things we saw at the high school level this year.
And these get me so excited because we had the distinct, like, privilege of having New Balance Indoor Nationals in Boston, and then we also had NCAAs in Boston this year. So you kind of got to see the best of both worlds competing on a very similar stage. Obviously the final day of New Balance in Nationals indoors was at the New Balance Center where the NCAAs was held. And so I think one of those things was Quincy Wilson running 45.76 at New Balance Nationals, would have placed sixth at NCAAs with that time. Obviously, like, would have been in probably a worse lane. You could go through all that. But still, like, the single best indoor performance by a high schooler ever. Not just objectively, but subjectively. Just insanity. And that started the rest of the year for him. We've known about Quincy for a long time. We saw him at AAU. Yep. Mile split. We've been following him for since his 8th, 7th grade year. We've been watching.
Even earlier.
Yeah, we have that clip from, like, his 4th or 5th grade year.
Yeah, when he was like 8 years old or something.
Yeah. And so we've been watching for a long time. We knew he was going to be a big name, but this was the year he obviously said, like, to the rest of the world, like, I'm Quincy Wilson, and I want to be the Quincy Wilson.
Yeah.
And we just talked about the 400, but they also Bola School set the 4x4 national record the same day. We also saw the 5K national record go down. Daniel Simmons ran 13:38. And then we also saw Drew Griffith break the 2-mile national record in 8:34.91. We were talking about it earlier at our desks, and that was probably one of the greatest distance runs of all time, regardless of era, right? Like we talked about Cheserek's record in 2013, but Drew Griffith shattered that, ran 5 seconds faster.
Yep.
We'll say Drew had the advantage of pace lights and a pacer, a high school pacer. Let's clarify that.
Yes.
It was a high school pacer. High school pacer. But I believe Cheserek ran that time in a pro field at Millrose. So when we talk about, the single best distance indoor performance of all time, I know we're talking about indoor, single best indoor distance performance of all time from a high schooler, that I feel like that's the one.
I mean, shoot, 8:34, and you take 5 seconds off a record that I think a lot of people thought Cheserek's record would stay for quite some time.
King Ches.
Exactly.
King Ches.
Yeah, I think that's when you're looking at that again, yeah, it was pretty phenomenal.
And it's weird. Like we talk about these records, and I was 13 when Cheserek broke that record. Like,
yeah,
I'm like aging myself. Not that old, I swear. I was 13, and I distinctly remember that because he was from New Jersey, or not from New Jersey, from Kenya, but competing in New Jersey. My brother was competing against him at the same time. My brother was nowhere near as good as him. But it's cool to see this changing of guard, right? Like we see those records seem so prolific at the time, and our younger listeners might not even remember like when that happened. But now we like look at it, and I think 2023, 2024 was arguably one of the best years of high school distance running in.
Oh yeah, I agree, 100%. I think. Again, the amount of records, top times we see go, it's just everyone's leveling up. And so we're just seeing people go faster and faster every year.
Speaking of leveling up, earlier today you said you think Quincy Wilson can break the 800-meter national record. Yeah,
I do. I mean, if we're going to stick on the topic of Quincy Wilson, then yeah, I think he can. 146.45, that's a high school national record from 1996, Michael Granville. No one has been able to touch in a long time. Will Sumner and came close, I think, a couple of years ago. Quincy can do it. He ran 150 off of 400-meter, 200-meter training, during the outdoor season.
And that's the all conditions record, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I have to ask, I know we have on our Santa hats right now, but actually, tis the season. I need you to put your coach's hat on real quick.
Okay, coach's hat on.
If you are Quincy's coach, how does he go out in order to break that record?
Oh, he has to run. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean,
Go
Coach
ahead.
John.
Yeah, he has to run a ridiculous first four, and then we've seen him do it before. I think he ran 148 last year.
150.
150.
Yeah.
And I believe the way he actually ran that really smart for a 400 guy, but he needs to attack that first four. He needs to go out in I don't want to say something too absurd, but he needs to go out. Well, I don't want to say too much, but we know he has the 45 speed.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to run a 50 first quarter and then just
maintain.
I don't know about that, man.
Well, no, if you go out in a 50 and then come back in a 56, you have it.
Well, yeah, true. Mm-hmm.
It's just easier on paper. It's easier on paper, but I think he has the strength.
See, I mean, obviously, I think what you'd want, you want probably a positive split. I don't know if you want that much of a positive split.
Well, yeah, ideally you want a 2 seconds positive split, right? So in an ideal world, you want to run a 52 and then 54.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with his top end speed, he can get away with running a 50, and I don't think that'll kill his legs.
Well, we'll see. Ideally, again, he would need to be training for the 800 to do it. We'll see if maybe he tries to dabble a little bit for that go up in distance this year.
So all right, hang on. But we're going to make predictions because I want to look back on this podcast in a month and a half and be able to put this on social and be hey, FloTrack got it right. So Nia, if he runs at 800 this year, we're assuming he will.
Okay.
What do you think he'll run?
If Quincy runs the 800 this indoor or outdoor?
Either. But it has to be the first one he runs this year.
The first.
Yes.
I'm saying 149.
Okay. That's honestly very fair.
Okay, his first one, he's going to run like a 152 because, like, you know, you got to get back into the groove of it, and he hasn't ran in a while.
I don't think so.
And then he drops down to like in the 140s.
Well, he's going after the 500-meter national record at VA Showcase. I don't know if we just broke news or not. I don't know if people know that, but we just broke it. He's going after the 500. He's running the 500 at the VA Showcase, or at least we're expecting him to. Naturally, any race that Quincy's in, he's going after a national record.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing for the 800. Like, I think Quincy's the type of guy. Calling him a kid's insane. Like, I'm not going to call him a kid.
After all this, he has to go home and do homework.
He's a grown man. With how much he's accomplished. I think if he's running 800, the only thing he has in mind is the national record. And on top of that, right, like, he's going to run a 4x8 at some point, and we're not counting this in this prediction, right? So, like, to both of your points, like, he might have an opportunity to, like, test out the 8 before he actually runs it open.
In the relay, I'm telling you, he's going to. I know we don't count splits as national records in the open, but I bet you he breaks 146 on a relay 4x8.
It depends how fast that baton exchange is, right? Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
Anyways, maybe we should transition now to.
Oh yes.
We went on a side tangent there talking about Quincy and his 800 speed, but I mean, goodness, y'all, a lot happened. This is not including the Olympics now, but just everything that happened during the outdoor season. What were some of y'all's favorite moments?
I got a couple, guys. I don't know. Should we start pro or college?
What if we started high school? Penn relays.
High school, that's where you want to start.
No, we don't have to. I just wanted to, like, segue out of Quincy, and I think a great way to do that is talk about the Penn relays and the battle between Jamaica and Bola School and the 4x4 and just how historic that race is. We have a video that's going to come out before the Penn relays this year, ideally, about that race, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a rematch we're going to see this year, and I think. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch the Penn relays where Bola School falls in the prelims in the 4x4. They fall in the second leg, fall. Quincy Wilson comes back from like 5 seconds, brings them back. They qualify for the finals, and then disaster once again, not able to come away with the win. I think we're looking forward to 2025 when ideally an American team takes home the win.
It could happen.
I know Nia has family in Jamaica, so she's Jamaica.
Listen, you know I'm biased, and you know who I'm rooting for.
Well, I think let's be real. If Bolas had not have fallen or dropped the baton on that exchange there, they would have won. Like, they had the speed to do it, but
it was unfortunate.
Go their way, so that's why. But if you've talked to Quincy and Bolas and them before, like, that is still something that's in their brain. Like, he's gone on to the Olympics and all that, but he still wants that Penn relays wheel. So I think that'll be something interesting to watch this year on the high school side.
One speck in the perfect picture that's just bothering him,
Yeah.
So the upcoming year is going to be exciting.
Shameless plug, make sure you tune in live to Flow for Penn Relays 2025.
That's right. But Nia, you said you had a couple favorite outdoor season moments. Let's start with you, I think.
Oh, yeah. The one and only, the hurdle god, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. She is nothing short of dominant. I don't know what she eats. I don't know what it is, but she's a walking world record. All she does is break her own world records at this point. When she broke it at U.S. trials, the time 50.65, and then I know we're going to get into the Olympics, but I guess before we get there, broke it again at the Olympics. When we talk about just dominance and the way she runs the race and with so much poise, even when she crosses the line in world record breaking fashion, all she does is just like, she's not ridiculously out of breath. She's still like standing up pretty well. Like, her face isn't all like turned up and stuff. She's just like, I went and I ran my best race. We had a goal, executed it, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow. But yeah, like, the way she runs the race it's usually one of those things with like the talent pool where it's like, oh my gosh, who's going to win, blah, blah, normally. But we're not in a normal time. She's such a special athlete, and it just makes the race so much more special. And it's like, the question is not if she's going to win, but how she's going to win, and how much is she going to win by.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see Sydney race a whole lot, but when she does race, you want a ticket to that race because you're going to see probably a world record go down. You know what I mean?
Box office.
And I've said it. I'll say it again. I think she is the most dominant American athlete of our generation. Like, put her past LeBron, put her past Tiger Woods. Like, I think she is the most. All right, maybe not Tiger Woods. That's close, I guess. But like,
Ahead of LeBron.
yes, absolutely.
LeBron.
When we're talking about dominance, Sydney is Sydney. Like, there is no one competing with her. Like, not a chance. Like, prime Tiger Woods, maybe a little bit different. I think Sydney is simply special. Like, I think we are witnessing greatness on a level that we've never seen in track and field. And it sucks that we don't see her race as like much as we would like. Like, if we could, I think we would all want to see her race like 8 times a year. That's probably not for the best for her contract, for her health, whatever. But we will see her race more this year with Grand Slam.
That's right. But yeah, she continues to do Sydney things.
Wow, more dominant than LeBron.
More dominant than LeBron. Absolutely.
Ooh.
Like, I don't even think it's close.
I don't know about that. I mean, yeah, she's dominant, but like it's hard to compare.
LeBron is dominant due to longevity.
Okay.
Like, if we talk about longevity, then yeah, LeBron has the cake. But like, we're talking about dominance. Like, no one beat Sydney.
True.
That's
Like,
fair.
I think everyone was like, "Oh, Femke has a chance to beat her," and it was like,
There was no chance.
there was no chance.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about the Olympics yet. But like,
I know. Yeah, we didn't even get there
Ooh-wee.
yet.
We're going to have to revisit that on another episode because I want to expand on that.
But I know, Sydney wasn't the only hurdler out there making waves this outdoor season.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Rai Benjamin. Yep. Well, I mean, like, what can we really say? Undefeated, Olympic champion. He had, like, we're comparing basketball to track right now. I feel like he had, like, a 96 Chicago Bulls type of year. Like, all jokes aside, he definitely had a chip on his shoulder because we all saw the disappointment in his face when he lost to Carson Warholm. And I think, like, that I talk about igniting fires you can't extinguish. This season was just that for Rai. It was, I keep talking about dominance and whatnot. I don't know. I think the hurdlers got it. I don't know. I keep saying that for the hurdlers. But, yeah, he had such a dominant year. He had such a dominant, dominant season. I'm trying to stop talking about the Olympics.
I know.
I know, yeah.
Like, I'm trying to, stop myself.
Yeah. I think, like, if you looked at the men's 400 hurdles, how it's been the past, few years, is you have a big 3, right?
Yeah.
Carson Warholm, Rai Benjamin, Alison Dos Santos. And like you said, we saw the disappointment in Rai's face when he didn't win that Olympic gold in Tokyo. And I think ever since then, he's been a man on a mission. Mm-hmm. And his mission was to win gold. And he was going to do everything he could to get there. And so we just were seeing, him throughout the outdoor season just really just trying to build up to that moment. And I mean, boy, did he did it perfectly. So
I think what's admirable about that is, he just wasn't, it's not like he was just upset and disappointed. You can tell there was adjustments made in his training, eating, the way he just carries himself during the race, even a bit in the way he executes his race. There was clear adjustments to make him just go, no pun intended, over that last hurdle to get to the eventual goal.
you guys hit the nail on the head.
I was going to say, any other comments?
Yeah, no, you guys hit. I think we call him King Rai for a reason. Mm-hmm. Is that his username? I think that's his username as well.
Is it?
I think so.
It may be.
I will say, though, we need to stop like naming people like King Rai, like Queen Sydney. Like, how many people can be king and queen? Like, we need to.
True. We need to make it more selective.
We need to reel in on that.
Okay.
As a collective, as a sports society.
Well, can I bring up another king, please?
Yes, you can bring up another king.
So I think for me, like the biggest memorable things from the outdoor season were just, and we kind of already talked about how high school running's been on such another level this year, but seeing some of those young stars shine against pros. King Quincy, that's the guy I'll bring up yet again, just because I need to talk a little bit about some of his accomplishments over the outdoor season. I mean, at the Olympic trials, we saw him racing against pros. He made it all the way to the finals. He broke the high school national record in the 400 multiple times. And then even after that, after he makes the Olympic team in the relay pool for the 4x4, he still runs at the ATL Holloway Pro Classic and runs 44:20. Like, one of the top times in the world, and he's 16 years old. I think it's just seeing that how poised he is or was on the Olympic trial stage, and then eventually going on again the Olympics. I know we're going to get there, but seeing him shine against pros was great. And then I'd say the same too about Christian Miller. Yep. He was slated to go to Georgia. He decided now he's not going to go collegiate and just go straight pro, and for good reason, because at one point he was the fastest. He had the fastest 100-meter time of the season at one point, again, of anyone in the world, any male in the world, faster than Noah Lyles, faster than any of those people.
Well, it's like crazy. Like going into the trials, we were still debating who had the better high school season. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't remember what mile split team decided on, because like if we talk about like the high school body of work, like they were so like close. Like we're talking about Christian Miller, who's a generational athlete, and I feel for him a little bit because I feel like he was overshadowed by Quincy this year, just based on what Quincy was able to accomplish. But Christian Miller accomplished some incredible things for his age. And I don't think it got talked about enough because everyone, like if we're talking about like the media in general and maybe like the national media that doesn't necessarily always focus on track and field, I think the story was Quincy, but that they almost like completely missed Christian Miller, especially at the trials.
Yeah, I'd agree. And, I think, even I thought it wouldn't be completely off if people predicted he made the Olympic team in the 100. Like, he ran 9.93 this year, which is crazy. I mean, so if you're looking at, I have his profile pulled up right now, he went 9.93, 9.95, 9.94, 9.98. Like, I think, like, he was very consistently going under 10 seconds. And, that puts you at an elite level where you can compete against grown men. So, I agree. I think he was a little bit overshadowed, but I'm excited to see what he's going to do now that he's turned pro, signed with Puma. Excited what he can do.
Can I interject and talk about college for a little bit?
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead,
go
please.
for it.
Yes.
Okay. So the women of Arkansas, the old 400-meter beast, they have like a four-headed monster out there.
Yes.
It was ridiculous. I feel like, in the open 400, they swept the top four spots, and it was led by Nikisha Price. She ran 48.89, which was not only a personal best, but a collegiate lead, a meet record, a collegiate record. We haven't seen a 400-meter performance like that, especially dominating the final like that in terms of the top four spots. And then obviously from there, you can tell that's going to translate into the 4x4, which I'm not sure what the training regimen is over there, but it's like anyone who walks into there, it's like I spoke about adjustments a bit when we were talking about Rai Benjamin. It's like they're able to see you, hone in on your talents, figure out your strengths, and make sure that you execute that in your race.
Yeah, I think if you're looking back at the collegiate season, they, that 400 group out there with Arkansas definitely stands out. Like you mentioned, Nikisha Price, that 48.89, I was there watching that, and it was, the shock on her face after that. I don't even think she realized that she could run that fast, which is absolutely crazy. I also think too, like, again, like there was just, it was a year of stars, I think, on the collegiate level. Like I'm thinking back to a lot of the big names. Parker Balby on the distance side, like you said, Nikisha Price. I think back to Mackenzie Long as well, how well she did at NCAAs. Caleb Dean on the hurdles side. He became the first NCAA male to ever win the 60-meter indoor title and the 400-meter hurdles outdoor title. So I think, and Christopher Morales-Williams, I think, is another guy to bring up as well. Like it was just a year of so many stars that they're at the top of the collegiate level, but then you were to insert them at the pro level, they would immediately like be toward the top. So it was a really interesting year, I think.
And we saw so many of those collegiate stars also compete at the trials.
Yeah.
I think this is a great way to start segueing, right? Like the trials and the Olympics.
Yes.
But I think one of those I wanted to talk about real quick was Shane Cohen and his kind of just, we talked earlier, right, about Julian Alfred.
Yes. And
her emergence. What about Shane Cohen? Like he's a D2 transferred from Tampa University in Florida. Obviously, where's Tampa? Transferred to Division I UVA, won an NCAA title, went on to the trials, and had some of those same kicks that we saw at the NCAA championship. And he was kind of just like creating a lot of excitement for those middle distance races. Which, speaking of middle distance races, let's talk about a thing, Mo. And just the devastating experience at the trials. And
looking back at moments of the year, I think obviously there's so many of these high moments that we're talking about, but then there's always the low moments. And I think for me, the most shocking, unfortunate moment of 2024 was a thing Mo falling at the Olympic trials in that 800 and not getting a chance to try to win that race or get top three to go to Paris and defend her Olympic title. Like, I remember it just like it was yesterday. I remember sitting there in the stands, and when I tell you that when she fell, like the whole just energy just like dropped from the stadium. It was crazy. Like even once the race was over, I don't think anyone at Hayward Field knew how to react. Like it was just, obviously you want to be happy for the 3 that did book their ticket to Paris, but then you just couldn't help but feel just so, I don't know if sorry is the right word, but it was just a lot of disappointment that, Thingmo, I think she was trying to get back into that mental grind of like trying to love running again and stuff like that. And to have something like that happen, it sucks.
Well, in sports, we have so many moments and so many, like, we talk about the moments, right? And the story tale, endings that we're like rooting for all the time. And I'm not saying this is an ending, but I think a thing Mo has gone through so much in the last couple of years. And I think a lot of people just expected her to make the Olympic team. Like, just going in, it was just kind of like an expectation that a thing would just easily glide through the rounds and then obviously through the finals. And then when that happened, I mean, like, if we're thinking even, like, there was commercials already made.
Yep.
Already debuting about her return to the Olympics. And then for her to fall at the Olympic trials, and you saw the devastation on her face, you saw the pictures, they were all over the place. It was just heartbreaking for people that were rooting for her return, rooting for her big kind of hurrah, right, after so much adversity that she had faced.
It was extremely heartbreaking to watch. Like, my heart broke for her when that happened, and I almost wanted to be like, somebody got to be upstairs to change the rules. Like, she's a defending Olympic champion. Yeah. Somebody got to be able to change the rules upstairs, but unfortunately it wasn't. And it's one of those moments where I understand it was definitely different stakes, but it felt similar to the feeling when I was watching the 2008 Olympics and watching Lolo Jones fall. And I just was like, oh, no, because she's just one of those talents and with a bright personality where you can't help but to love her. You can't help but to just root for her and want her to win. She's hard not to root for, regardless of what country you're going for. And I was really looking forward to the matchup between her and Keely. I think they raced together incredibly well. Yep. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, no, she's the reigning Olympic champion. There's got to be a rule or something in there. And I was like, it's like those moments too, where like when it happens, you know exactly where you were. Yeah. When it happened.
And it's crazy. So I guess just thinking back of like when I've seen a Thingmo race in the past couple of years. So obviously I saw her at the Olympic trials. I also saw her at Prefontaine. I think that was 2023, that September when it was the Diamond League final. And I think that was the moment when Thingmo was finally starting to love running again, because she won that Diamond League title. And I just remember her crossing the finish line and like just looking up to the sky and screaming. Like it just seemed like it was like, okay, she's back. Like she's back. And then to think that like the next moment I saw her, she was on the ground, like falling and had a very low moment. It's just kind of weird to think about.
Deflating.
Yeah.
It is. But it also opened the opportunities for other women to experience that world stage.
Yeah.
And so it sucks that like obviously we can only send 3, right? Like we have plenty of women that are capable of competing on a world stage, but we can only send 3.
Yeah.
And so in a weird way, like her demise was a great opportunity. I believe it was Isabella Whitaker.
Yeah,
was the third woman in.
Juliet
Whitaker was the third woman in, and like she made her first Olympic team.
Yeah.
And it's sad that had to happen for that to happen. But when we're talking about the Olympics, the biggest stage in the world, I think we might look back on this moment and be like, well, that was Juliet Whitaker's like first step in a very successful career, because we've seen her race very, very well. We saw her race at the Olympics very well.
Yep.
And so after LA, right? After LA 2028, we might look back on 2024 and be like, if she didn't have that experience and she didn't have the opportunity to race at Paris, like she wouldn't be competing for a podium spot or winning a medal. Not cross our fingers, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But
very fair. Very fair point.
It opened up the doors for her too, because sometimes there's like, I know I can, I think I can, but when you prove you can.
Yeah.
It's a different, I think, level that's unlocked within yourself. And I think we're going to see a different beast come out of Juliet moving forward.
It'll be fun to see.
That's for sure. Well, guys, I know we've been alluding to it this entire time, but should we finally just go all in on the Olympics?
Yes.
Let's do it.
I'm excited.
I want to start with Grand Holloway because, like,
okay,
let's just talk about Grand Holloway and just get it out of the way.
Okay.
Grand Holloway.
Yeah.
The most sub 13 second. I'm like all mixed up. Sub 13 second 110 meter hurdles of all time, runs 12 of them. insanity. We saw him dominate again on the world, or not, well, on the world stage, but the first time he gets the Olympic gold.
Yep.
Huge moment for him. And has he secured like his status as one of the best American track and field athletes of all time?
I mean, he should be in that conversation if he is, and I think that's kind of a problem because if you look, no one else has dominated like that, like you said earlier, consistently like that at any of the other events. I mean, you look at, kind of reminds me of like, you know, the equivalent of like a Ryan Krauser, you know, like he is, how dominant he's been in the shot put and how consistent he is, and then you have Grant Holloway just continuing to win and perform super well, and now he gets that elusive gold medal. I think that was the thing that he needed to almost like put the bow on his resume in a way to really solidify it.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about that Mount Rushmore, wow, I'm
Mount Rushmore.
I'm all messed up. When we're talking about that Mount Rushmore, right? It's hard because we have so many disciplines in track and field.
Yes.
Like, it's not as simple as like talking about, you know, best quarterbacks of all time or best NFL players of all time. I think a lot of those on that Mount Rushmore would probably be quarterbacks just because like they're the stars of that sport. I think in track and field it's difficult because you look at, and if we're talking specifically American track and field athletes, like you have the people like Steve Prefontaine, but when you compare against other distance stars, like his resume was good. It wasn't like out of this world, but the legacy he left on the sport was pretty important. We talk about someone like, I mean, Michael Johnson. I think Michael Johnson has to be on that Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so you start running out of spaces. If you only have 4, like you're running out of opportunities to place people. And I think we're seeing a lot of the athletes right now, we're considering some of the best athletes, or we think they could be some of the best athletes of all time.
Yeah.
For America.
For sure. Like when we talk about Mount Rushmore, I think there's an element of fairness that we kind of have to get out the window, unfortunately, because there are some runners that are like strictly 100 runners, strictly 200 runners, strictly 400 runners, but maybe they wouldn't be considered as dominant because they can't do it across the 1 and the 2 or the 2 and the 4 or the 1, 2 and 4, or maybe like the 8 and the 15. Like, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Or maybe like a Jasmine Moore who can do like long jump and triple jump. Like a lot of athletes are just really kind of specialty runners. So sometimes you may not be able to consider them unless they are like a Sydney McLaughlin, who obviously you have to have her in the conversation at the very least. So there's like that element of fairness that you just have to get out the window. Unfortunate, but yeah. And then like, how do you define greatness? It differs from person to person because it's like, you know, you mentioned Prefontaine, the legacy he left behind during like the running boom and just like the influence that he had on track and field moving forward, even after him passing away. You have to consider that because we would have this level of talent, but like, would it be as celebrated without him? I mean, the verdict is out on that. So it really depends on what your definition of it is.
We'd have to like expand the Mount Rushmore to like 8 people. Like, I feel like, or you have to do, if you're gonna do one, you have to do one for the men and then one for the women, because like if we're talking about men and women, like there's no way you get down to 4. I'm sorry, there's just too many people to consider.
Anyways, that was another tangent.
Yeah, sorry.
I feel like
doing this.
We got to bring it back in. We have too much to talk about.
Let's bring it to Paris.
Okay. Who wants to go?
Well, you were in Paris.
I was in Paris.
Oh, we can start with you then.
Man, it's crazy like thinking back on Paris because there were just so many great moments that it was just like I still remember it like it just happened. You know, like it was I think what made the Paris Olympics special this year is that there were just, while there were some I guess events that the outcomes were pretty expected and the races were more expected, there were just also so many wild, unexpected, entertaining storylines I think that we saw unfold that perhaps weren't predicted. You know, I think if I had to pick, like, I have written down like 4 top moments that I have from the Olympics, but I think Mondo raising his world record at the Olympics was just, I mean, he was the last person on the track. Like, all the track events were over and everyone was just screaming for him. I mean, that was incredible. I think the crazy men's 100-meter race where Noah Lyles barely beat Kashane Thompson. I mean, when I tell you the suspense going into that race was just crazy. And then the fact that, you know, everyone in the stands is like staring at the video board waiting for the official results for a little bit was, you know, I think added to that suspense and the craziness of that race. I also think personally, you know, I'm a distance person, and I remember me and Brian were in this in the press tribune in the stands watching this race unfold, and the men's 1500 when Cole Hawker started like coming around the turn and trying to pass Jakob on the inside, and then shoot, he's actually passing Jakob on the inside. Like, we were standing up like, oh my gosh, like, it's, you know, that was a crazy race. Cole Hawker winning gold and Yair Nuguse getting the bronze for Team USA. And then I'll add my fourth one. I think Sifan Hassan winning the women's marathon after earning 2 bronze medals in the 5K and the 10K is just a type of athletic performance that you don't see hardly ever. So I think, and again, like that's 4 moments that I picked out, but I mean, there are plenty of others that I think people could talk about too.
The 2024 Olympics were insane. Like,
Yeah.
just blew 2021 out of the water in terms of like memorable moments.
For sure. Easily.
Like, you hit on 4 of them, 4 of them. I think the biggest one out of that bunch that you mentioned, because we could talk about every event,
Yeah.
was Noah Lyles out-dipping Kishane, because not because it was like oh, Noah Lyles got gold. It was more so big because of the attention it brought to the sport.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
people were arguing about the sport and whether or not Noah actually won, because casual fans didn't understand the concept that like it was your chest that has to go across the line.
Yeah.
But people were genuinely asking, like, oh, why did Noah win?
Yeah.
Like, I can see his foot in front of Noah. Like, how did Noah win? And when you're generating conversation, whether it's explaining the rules or controversy, like, it's good for the sport. Like, the fact that people were asking questions about track and field is good for the sport. The fact that people wanted to know more about track and field was good for the sport. And I think we saw it all over social media. Like, people were talking, and maybe we see this every Olympics, but this year it felt different in the sense that people were like genuinely interested about other races, other events, other meets altogether. And I don't know if we necessarily have seen that in the past at this level.
I want to touch on the discourse that was surrounded by Noah Lyles and that 100. I think the world was tuned in. Some of them were tuned in because, yay, go USA, but some of them were tuned in because they wanted to see him lose.
Yeah.
They wanted to see him lose. I think that was the first time I've seen Americans not wanting America to win just because of their feelings around Noah Lyles. So like, I love the discourse, good or bad. I love it all. It is good for the sport, to your point. And just the race in itself had so much conversation around it. I think like it was the first time at the Olympic Games, a sub 10-second semifinal run was not enough to make the final. And it was like 0.12 was the gap between first and 8th place. It was an extremely close race. And it was one of those ones where for all, like, okay, let's just say 10 seconds. Obviously, they were all done before 10. You're just kind of holding your breath like, oh, my God, who won? And then, like, you take a exhale, and then you take another deep breath when you're trying to figure out who was it, Noah or was it Kishane? And the discourse around it, I was explaining to people, like, you know, it's your torso. That's how you figure out who wins first, not your limbs. And then people, their rebuttal, instead of like, oh, okay, I get it. It's like, well, that's not fair because his head and his arms and his legs and da-da-da-da. And yeah, the discourse around it was just, it was really good for the sport.
I mean, again, just drama. I mean, it's something that you can't even really script. It's crazy. Again, like, I think, like, before the race was started, like, I was, like, my heart was racing. I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is going to be a crazy race to witness. And then, I mean, it turned out to be a crazy race. So that was pretty cool. But okay, so I know I talked about a lot of moments. I think my favorite moment, though, if I had to pick one out, has to be that men's 1500 because I also think that, had some drama involved. I think a lot of people were following that Jakob Ingebrigtsen versus Josh Kerr. We talk about trash talk. Those guys have been trash talking ever since the World Championships. They do not like each other, and it looked like it was going to be a battle between Jakob and Josh for the gold medal. But it was Cole Hawker who takes the gold with the move on the inside. Yair Nuguse even beats Jakob there to get bronze, and Josh Kerr takes the silver. Again, I think that's a race where we haven't seen that sort of, performance like that, I think, from a male American distance runner. Like, of course, you think back to Matt Centrowitz winning the gold in Rio, but that was a completely different race. Like, that was a very strategic, like, slow, strategic race. This was, like, all out from the get-go. I mean, Cole Hawker set an Olympic record with his performance there, and so I think that's one that I mean, I will still, like, sometimes if I need, like, a good boost to my day, I'll, like, watch the race replay on YouTube just to, like, because it's so entertaining to me.
I think that picture deserves to be in a museum. Like,
Yeah.
like if we look at this picture, you're looking at two of the best distance runners of all time, Josh Kerr and Jakob, and then you have two of the best Americans at the discipline right now. I don't think we can necessarily put them in the greatest of all time category just yet in terms of like middle distance running or 1,500 meter running, miling, that's not a word, mile running. But I think the moment of that race, right, was when Jakob kind of clipped Cole Hocker or cut him off. And for a moment there, everyone was like, oh, Cole Hocker, there's no way he comes back from that. Like, he just lost all his momentum in the last 150 meters. Like, how could he possibly rebound from that? And then he just had if he went to a fifth gear then, he had a sixth gear. It's like, how? Yeah. Like, we've seen him kick time and time again. I think it's reminiscent of the 2021 trials when he outkicked Matthew Centrowitz in one of the preliminary rounds. And so I think it felt like a changing of the guard for mile running, American mile running, in a really, really good way.
You know, Ashley, as you mentioned drama, I kind of want to talk about my favorite moment from the Olympics.
Okay, what is it?
This was better than an episode of Love Island. Let me tell y'all. So Quincy Hall in that 400.
Yes.
Man, listen, I think people have to understand at that point in the race where he kicked, usually you settle for wherever you're at. Mm-hmm. If you're coming second, you're coming second, third, whatever. But whatever monkey was on his back, he threw off and made sure he was going to gun for that win. I was astonished. My mouth dropped. And I just was like, where did you find that? Where did you dig to get like that from? Like, he meant he was going to win that race. So we talk about dogs. We've been talking about dogs, I think, this entire episode. But that was such a dog moment, and one of those ones that has to go down in Olympic history for, like, if there was a category, like, what was the most dog moment that you saw? Top of the top right there.
I mean, shoot, with 100 meters to go, I was like, this guy's out of it. I'm like, there's no freaking chance. Like, he was way back in, like, fourth or fifth place, and he looked like he was fading. Then all of a sudden, it's like, where did he find that? I think it takes a special athlete and a person to find that sort of energy to really just claw your way back and fight for that Olympic gold. And I think I've had people just like chatting with people that aren't track fans but watch the Olympics and stuff. I've had a lot of people tell me that was their favorite moment from the Olympics.
It had to be. It was almost like, one thing I think we've all done, we've all played Mario Kart in some way or whatever. And like when you're driving and maybe you have 50 meters until you cross the line and you got like the little boost, you're able to drive into the boost and then hit the X button and then do the room. That's what happened. He hit that X button, he got that boost, and he was able to narrowly come out with the victory.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was a really, really fun race. And you talk about the reception afterwards. I think you guys both hit on it. Like, you're right. Like, the public reception was so good about that race because it was so exciting. Like, those are the track and field moments that we see every week, but the general public doesn't. And so when we can get the eyeballs on the sport, it's so good.
For sure. What were some of your favorite moments, Sean?
Well, yeah, there's a lot. I had a lot.
It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah, I will say Grant Fisher becoming the first American to medal in both the 5K and 10K at the same Olympics. It's really cool. In those longer distance events, historically we haven't seen Americans able to, I don't want to say dominate, but show up consistently. Mm-hmm. And for him to do that in both races at the same Olympics was really, really cool to see. Ryan Krauser takes gold. It's his third gold medal. And I really want to talk about the 4x1, the men's 4x1.
Yeah.
The women get gold.
Okay.
The men's 4x1, once again, they're just cursed.
What is the problem?
It's a curse. I'm telling you, it has to be a curse. Like, that's the only.
They need to change. That's the thing. They need to change with their relay program.
We have the best 100-meter sprinters in the world. Yeah, and we cannot win the 4x1.
But when it comes to the 4x1, I'm going to be honest with you, that doesn't matter. What matters is the mechanics and how close the mechanics and how clean of a pass you can have. You can have 10 flat runners win that 4x1 if they have. It's not the fastest that wins. It's the cleanest exchange that wins. The one who's like within the parameters. And USA just can't get it right. It's like a weird chemistry issue. All the talent in the world, and for whatever reason, we can't mesh it.
Is it because they're so competitive against each other, right? Like, a lot of the times in the United States, I feel like our sprinters are so focused on beating each other that, like, is that why we just don't have that chemistry? Like, I think it's a lot of it is friendly trash talk, but like we think about Noah, right?
Yeah.
And you know, his personality, whether good or bad, I think it's great. But does that create some animosity that doesn't allow for that chemistry to build on these relay teams?
I think I would disagree a little bit. I think what it comes down to, plain and simple, is fundamentals. They're not teaching them how, like, this is stuff that you should have learned in high school. And obviously it's, you know, it's a little bit different working with adults in the room, like trying to get people in a relay camp together to hopefully come away with a medal in a 4x1. But like it's little things that they're messing up on. Like, why is, you know, Kenny Bednarek going on the wrong count? That's why they couldn't pass the baton. Like, it's stuff that's like should be drilled into these guys' brains. It's almost like we need to take a step back and like really evaluate like how we're, you know, getting these guys ready for a big stage like this in a relay.
Blow it up, blow everything up, because it's not working. It just doesn't work. How many Olympics is it going to have to take for them to kind of like, maybe not to be as mean, but embarrassingly do this? Yeah. It's almost every Olympics. So regardless of how competitive they are, there should at the very least be that commonality that we want to win. As a matter of fact, that competitiveness should drive them to like kind of get it together. The exchange passes, I was hearing through like the grapevine or just Twitter that
grapevine
that is X,
that I think like they rearranged the order after Noah Lyles you know, got COVID and couldn't compete any further. But still, what is it? Because the women are fine.
They shouldn't have rearranged
the order. You just
slot in the new guy on Noah Lyles' leg, and then you don't even have to deal with like having to, you know, working with people that you didn't, you know, practice that exchange between those two people, and that plays in the 4x1. That's also an issue, you know what I mean? I think that goes back to coaching. I think that, again, it goes back to fundamentals. It's just like, it's not working.
Blow it up.
I think there's a curse.
I
just think it's a curse. Like, I think there is a thing in sports, and don't think we can even explain it, but momentum. Like, having that momentum going into the Olympics from having won it in 2021 would have been really, really helpful. Like, I think this looming curse and this pressure that, and these athletes are the best in the world, like, they don't feel much pressure, but I think feeling like that you have this whole country on your back and this looming curse that's been over 20 years. They haven't won gold since 2000. They haven't medaled since 2004. 2028, it'll be 24 years since they won a medal in the 4x1. And when you talk about one of the best or the best country in the world in terms of track and field, like, that is like really painful.
Yeah, I'm wondering what they're going to have to do with the coaching, because again, the biggest thing that I'm saying is it doesn't matter who is the fastest. It matters who has the cleanest passes and who has the best mechanics. Who can really sit there, look at the athletes they have, digest all that information, and make it where it's like, okay, this person works best with this person, that person works best with this person. Let's put this person on the back stretch because he passes to this person the best. And although he may be fastest, he may run a better turn and pass it better than this person to finish off the race. Because I think, number one, finish the race cleanly, don't get disqualified. Number two, win.
Fair.
Well, do we want to finally go through cross country is still on the top of our heads. Like,
yeah.
I think one of the things you said earlier, Ashley, was that BYU is good. That's the message.
If we're moving on from Paris and now talk about cross country, I mean, like you said, we were just there. It just was a few weeks ago. We watched NCAA championships, and that was my one note. The only note I wrote down in this section is takeaways. BYU is really freaking good. They sweep both the men's and the women's NCAA team titles, and I mean, they have something special there. A really great program there, led by Coach Taylor and Coach Ed Eyestone, and I mean, it's very rare to see a team sweep on the men's and women's sides at the NCAA cross-country championships. But, I mean, they showed all year long that they were two of the most dominant programs and two of the deepest programs in NCAA. And, I mean, they're building something really cool there.
Yeah, I think it kind of an anomaly in track and field. Like, they recruit based on personality, but they're able to get personality or that chemistry and that competitive edge.
Yeah.
They do a really good job of intaking good people that they know can mesh well, and I think that's why they're so good at running cross country. And I think we're seeing it. Like Zariel Makia committed to BYU, really good high schooler right now. She does not, practice in the Church of Latter-day Saints, but she is going to BYU because she wants to be a part of that culture that Coach Taylor has built there. And I think she will be a great match for that program. We've spoken with her on the mile split side, and she is, a really well-spoken student athlete. She really competitive. We saw her at Foot Locker go out and just take off literally last week, right? Last week? Yeah, it was Saturday. This has been a long week. We saw her take off at Foot Locker, run the first loop, and I don't want to transition to Foot Locker, but run the first loop by herself out front on the top hill. She kind of got caught there, and she finally finished third. But long story short, they're recruiting really good women, and on the men's side as well, that mesh so well together. And I don't know how they do it. Like every year, it feels like they're getting better and better and better. And I feel like this was the year on the men's side that we thought, oh, come on, like Oklahoma State's got it. Like they've got too many men that are too good. And BYU just said, no, like, this is still our dance.
BYU, like to your point, they are really good. I don't really know how else to say it, but I do want to talk about a little bit more about the coaches. Coach Taylor and Coach Eystone, they have such a good system coming in and out of there because they've been dominant for so long. And when I was watching them at Big 12s, Coach Taylor said something to her girls like post race, it's like so easy to do stuff when stuff is good, but like you guys did well when your backs are against the wall, and just the way that coaching translates to their performances and make sure that the chemistry is there. It's literally astounding. Same with Coach Eystone. Maybe they should coach the USA men's 4x1. I don't know. But
one of the I'm obviously thinking about one of the funny moments from NCAA's is, Coach Ed Eystone and their coaching staff. They greased up the men with olive oil before the race just to give them an extra layer of insulation. I'd never heard of that before. And Coach Ed Eystone has that old school, like he knows things or has tried things that like most people haven't or most people don't remember. Like, that could have been a trick from the 1980s. Like, I don't know when that, like, who did that first. I'm sure somebody did.
Yeah.
And he has that old school knack, but he's able to adapt to this new school of training. And I think that's what makes a great coach. Someone who can take different ideologies, mix them together, make it their own. Coach Ed Eystone is one of the greatest coaches in the world right now on the distance side. I mean, we saw it at the Olympics. Not to go back to the Olympics. Kenneth Rooks gets a medal. James Corrigan is an Olympian.
Connor and Clayton in the marathon.
The year that he had as a coach was unbelievable. When we talk about cross country, though, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Graham Blanks.
Oh, yeah.
And especially Hapdom after his race.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at this, Graham Blanks wins yet another NCAA individual title, and it was a different season for him, right? Like, because he did compete at the Olympics, and so you take a little bit of time off after that, then get a later start to the season, reset, and he was still able to go out there and win the title. But again, like you mentioned, Hapdom Samuel getting second with one shoe, like that's just. I think that speaks to the kind of grit that Hapdom Samuel has. And, he's, again, runner-up for second straight year in a row. I think he's obviously one of the best runners in NCAA. And, I think that's, again, just shows the type of grit that he has.
And I think, sorry, Nia, I didn't mean to jump in front of you. I think Hapdom, he's going to come back very, very strong. His foot got stitched up after NCAA, so we won't see him race until probably mid-January, if I had to guess, by the time he's able to run and get back into his form. But I think he could have won that race. I think he knows that he could have won that race. I think Graham probably knows that Hapdom would have been right there with him.
Yeah.
I think Graham, is confident in his ability and will say that, he's going to win that race regardless. But Hapdom was kind of heartbroken after that race. You could tell, like, he was in good spirits. Like, he's not a sore loser. Like, he's been there before. He's been in these moments. But you could tell, like, he was going up that last hill, he still thought he had a chance. Like, he was close enough to Graham, but on a wet course, right, with no shoe, he had no grip. Like, especially when we're talking about spikes. Like, most of those men were probably wearing either 1/4 inch, some were probably even wearing 3/8 inch, maybe even a few, I don't think there's that many, wearing 1/2 inch spikes. When we take that into consideration, you're running barefoot with absolutely no grip going up a muddy hill, like, good luck. And I think that's where we saw that gap kind of form a little bit. Same thing on the downhill. I think Graham was able to crush it a little bit going downhill and just take it home from there. But Graham's really freaking good too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
And I don't want to jump into indoor, but eventually Graham did go pro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so now he'll be racing in the pro ranks for New Balance. Really excited to see what he can do in 2025.
That's for sure.
I quickly want to expand on Samuel's race real quick, because for those that weren't there, I know I wasn't there either, but just having an idea of, but you were there.
Yes.
Just to kind of set the scene, because, you know, we called him a gritty runner, but the level of toughness that he possessed is a little crazy. To run with no shoe, you're not running at a slow pace. The ground is hard. I'm sure there's probably little infractions in the road that may be getting in the way. Obviously, he did have to end up getting stitched up. But to keep on running a race and then to come second at NCAA Division I Nationals, like, just, I really want to set the scene so people know that this wasn't like, you know, a walk on the beach.
And to that point, like, this was one of the most competitive fields, if not the most competitive field we've ever seen on the men's side. And a lot of it is from the transfer portal really exploding.
Yeah.
More international students coming to United States to compete in the NCAA. This was the field. Like, some of us didn't even have Graham Blanks in our top 2. I don't even know if I did. I think I had.
I did not.
I didn't either. I had Solomon
Kipchoge
yeah. As my winner, and I don't remember who I had second. It might have been Haptum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we didn't even expect them to be necessarily alone, but for Haptum to lose a shoe, like you said, navigate that course with a foot that was gushing blood and come home second, so impressive.
It was freezing.
Yeah, it was cold. It was cold.
Freezing. And I know I'm always cold, but I think objectively we could say it was cold.
Yeah, no, it was cold.
It was cold.
Well, should we go ahead and wrap it up here with, I guess the only thing we haven't talked about yet is the marathon season, which spans like the entire year, but I feel like that's probably a good place for us to end things.
I agree. I kind of want to start off with the Chicago Marathon.
Yes.
The world record. Miss Ruth. Come on. What? That was ridiculous.
And it was ratified this week, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
yeah.
it
It was ratified this week, yeah.
Officially ratified. I mean, yeah, like So I've covered 2 Chicago marathons, and I remember watching Kelvin Kipton break the world record, and I was like, this is the craziest performance I'll ever see in a marathon in person. And then it got one-upped this year by Ruth Chepngetich, 2:09:56 for the women's marathon world record. I think that if you don't, obviously we all know marathoning. If you don't know marathoning, like, to explain just how crazy that is, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, I mean, it goes down, I think, in my mind, the greatest women's distance performance of all time. Going sub 2:10 as a female is crazy, because I think, you know, if you look at what the previous record was, when Tugisa Sefa broke the world record in Berlin by like 2 minutes, and I think it dropped down to like 2:11.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that was crazy. And so then you go in and not only do you lower the world record by 2 minutes, but you break 2:10. Like, that's just crazy. I mean, the way to, like, I remember watching that race and covering it, and at first I was like, oh no, this is going to go so poorly. Like, she went out just from the gate, like, going like 2:08 pace. And I'm like, and all of us in the media room were sitting there, we're like, there's no way she can keep this up this whole time, right? But sure enough, I mean, sure, she did slow down as the race went on, but the fact that she still ran 2:09 is just, it's hard to almost believe.
She finished 11th in that race, I believe. Overall.
Yeah, overall. Yeah.
Like, overall, including men and women, like, she finished 11th, like, beat a lot of really, really good pros on the men's side.
I think at one point she was like running with CJ Albertson, like, at the beginning, and he was like, holy crap, like, what's she doing up here? So
yeah, well, he thought she was on complete, like, suicide pace. Like,
yeah.
He thought there was no way. He was like, I only finished 2 minutes ahead of her. Like,
yeah.
And CJ ran great.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's obviously the most memorable moment, I think, in marathoning this year. But yeah, crazy.
You were there. So, and I know you said the prior one, you were saying, oh, no one can beat this performance. Do you kind of mimic that response with Ruth's performance this year?
Yeah, now I'm like, there's no freaking way anyone can beat that performance. We'll see. Maybe someone will go 2:08 next year. Who knows?
Yeah, it was a shame that like this race was so shrouded in controversy, and whether that was because of all the doping violations we've seen out of East African runners recently, mostly from Kenya. It was a shame that it was shrouded, because this could be like the performance that we reflect back on, and there will always be.
There's always going to be that
cloud, and it's sad that that's because of how many doping violations Kenya has had, and hopefully there's better regulations and more enforcement from the Kenya athletics team, or Kenya, I believe that's what they're called, Kenya Athletics. But I think this performance was legit, and I wish it wasn't shrouded in so much haze.
I agree.
It is.
There was a lot of that buzz. It's like instantly the race finishes, and it's like, is this even naturally possible?
But, we're going to see that every time a world record's broken in the marathon.
Yeah.
Men and women. I think regardless of who even does it, I think there's so much advanced technology now, and so many ways to dope in ways we don't even understand, or like I would need a biochemistry degree to understand. That it's a shame that like previous controversies will outweigh what could be happening in the sport.
Yeah, and it's hard because there's new things being invented every day. Like I know in college, or when I was in college, not that it was like that long ago, but when I was in college, like the doping list, they always said the list will like never be complete, just because of that fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, it is a part of the story, but it makes for an interesting one, which made for an interesting year.
Yes.
So I think we'll end it there. Looking forward to 2025. And as we talk about 2025, before we close out, guys, this will be our last FloTrack podcast. We'll be returning in the new year with the Reimagine and Revision show, and we are looking forward to sharing it with you all. Thanks so much for joining us.